I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. Not in the way that makes you feel flattered, more like seen. Like she was sorting the parts of me I hadn't figured out yet. I only ever saw her on Thursdays. Around 4 p.m. She'd come into the bookstore cafe wearing that faded navy windbreaker and smelling faintly of eucalyptus. Always the same order, 1 chamomile tea, no honey, with half a lemon. She'd sit at the corner table by the back window, the one with the peeling varnish and the chair that wobbled slightly if you leaned left. I worked behind the counter 3 days a week, mostly stocking shelves and restocking pastries that no one really bought. The cafe wasn't loud, wasn't trendy. That's why I liked it. No one was performing anything. She didn't come in for small talk. Not at first. Just nodded at me once. Then again a week later. Then, the week after that, she said, "Thanks, Daniel." I blinked. I hadn't worn my name tag in months. After that, she started asking questions like she wasn't really asking, just putting something into the air and seeing if I'd catch it. "You always work the quiet hours? Books are safer than people, huh? You always squint when you read? Or are those fake glasses?" I didn't always answer. Sometimes I just smiled or shrugged. Once I lied and said I liked poetry. She handed me a copy of Mary Oliver's Devotions the next Thursday without a word. Just slid it across the counter like a transaction and walked off. I started drinking chamomile at home. Not because I liked it, it's actually kind of awful, but because it reminded me of something I couldn't quite name. I didn't know her name until the 6th Thursday. "Janine," she said, sliding a $10 bill into the tip jar. "Just so you don't keep calling me that tea lady in your head." I looked up too quickly and knocked over the sugar jar. She didn't laugh, but her eyes did. She had this way of talking like she was already halfway through the conversation in her head. I'd be catching up while she was already moving on. But sometimes, rarely, she'd pause, mid-sentence, like she wanted to say something that didn't belong to the moment. That's how it was today. She'd stayed a little longer than usual. I was wiping down the counter, watching her pack up her book and teacup like it was a ritual. I thought she'd already left when I looked up and she was still there, standing on the other side of the counter. "You smile too much for someone so sad," she said, soft. Not unkind, just certain. I didn't say anything. She leaned in slightly, close enough that I noticed the faint scar under her bottom lip. Then, and I swear I didn't imagine this, she reached out, held my chin with 2 fingers like she was adjusting a painting on a wall, and said, "You're wasting that smile on girls who don't see." She let go like nothing had happened, like we hadn't just crossed some invisible line. I watched her leave, windbreaker swishing, lemon slice still untouched in her teacup. I stood there, still holding the rag I'd been wiping with, my heart suddenly very aware of itself. An hour later, after the shop had emptied and I was locking up, I checked my phone. One unread message. Janine didn't show up at 4:15. She showed up at 4:22, holding 2 coffees and no explanation. No windbreaker today, just a pale linen shirt rolled up at the sleeves, her hair slightly windblown like she'd parked in a rush. She handed me the coffee without a word and nodded toward the back corner. I followed. It wasn't a date. Not exactly. But the air around us felt edited, like something had been taken out to make room for something else. We sat there, not talking much at first. I noticed she had faint tan lines on her ring finger. She noticed me noticing. "Divorced," she said simply. 3 years now. Still wear the ghost of it, apparently. I blinked. "I didn't mean to." "I know." She sipped her coffee, looking past me. "You don't ask questions out loud. It's kind of nice." We sat like that for a while, occasionally sipping, occasionally watching the other sip. She asked about school. I told her I'd taken a break, which is just a more polite way of saying I dropped out. I didn't say that part. "Is that why you work here?" she asked, eyes scanning the chipped mug she held like it might offer some answer first. "Sort of." I paused. "I like watching people come in. They're all looking for something. Sometimes it's just caffeine. Sometimes it's something else." Janine smiled faintly. "What am I looking for?" I didn't know if she actually wanted an answer, so I didn't give one. She leaned back, adjusted her watch. "You know my daughter's your age," she said, more to the air than to me. "She'd hate this." She laughed a little at her own honesty. I didn't. The silence after that settled heavier than the others. But it didn't feel wrong, just real. I thought about what it would look like from the outside. 22 and 46. Her. Self-assured, a little distant. Me. Squinting through a conversation, wondering how close was too close to sit. I thought about the message she'd sent, the way she'd touched my chin. I thought about how many times I'd nearly asked for her number, only for her to hand it to me first. "You okay?" she asked, watching me drift. "Yeah," I said, then added, "I don't really talk much. Not about real things." "That's okay," she said, voice gentler now. "We don't have to name things for them to be true." A couple came in laughing too loudly. The spell cracked a little. Janine stood up, brushing crumbs off her lap. Before she left, she reached across the table and gently straightened the collar of my shirt. Just a quick fix. Barely a touch. But it landed somewhere deeper. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. She came in later than usual. Hair damp. No makeup this time, or maybe just less of it. Still beautiful, but in a way that made her seem closer to my world. More like someone I could touch. She didn't order tea. Just walked straight to the back table. Sat down like she was trying to disappear into the seat. I brought over 2 drinks anyway, chamomile for her, black coffee for me. Set them down and sat without asking. "Bad day?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just stared at the lemon slice floating in her cup. Then, "My ex called this morning. First time in months." I nodded slowly, not sure what to say to that. She looked up. "He's remarried. Wants to introduce me to his wife. Like it's some adult closure event." I waited for the usual dry joke. It didn't come. I said no. She added, quieter. The silence settled again. Thicker than usual. Outside, a delivery truck reversed loudly, the beeping more jarring than it should have been. I looked at her hands. Nails chipped, a faint ink smudge near her thumb. She caught me looking and moved them off the table. "I shouldn't be here," she said finally. My stomach tightened. "You're always here on Thursdays." "I know," she sighed. "That's the problem." She didn't mean the cafe. We both knew that. I wanted to say something. Anything. That I didn't expect anything. That it wasn't like that. That maybe it was exactly like that. But it didn't have to be wrong. But then, oh my God, Dan! A voice behind me. Too loud. Too familiar. I turned. It was Sam. My friend from uni. We used to drink cheap beer and talk about girls we'd never talked to. He grinned when he saw us. "I haven't seen you in." His eyes flicked to Janine. Then back to me. "Sorry. Am I interrupting something?" I opened my mouth, but Janine stood up. "No," she said. "We were just finishing." She offered him a practiced smile. Polite. Remote. Then gathered her bag without looking at me. "See you around, Daniel," she said. "Not next Thursday. Not even soon. Just around." And then she was gone. I stayed there. Sam gave me a look but didn't say anything. He ordered a muffin and left. The cup she'd left behind still steamed a little. She hadn't taken a sip. The next week she didn't come. Or the one after that. I started bringing a second cup to the table anyway. Just in case. I'd drink both, slowly, like I was holding space for someone not late. Just hesitating. Then, on the 3rd week, a Thursday, I found a note wedged into the spine of devotions. Someone had reshelved it wrong. Or maybe right. In her handwriting. "You make it very hard to stay away. That's the only reason I still am." I read it twice. Then once more like it might change. And for a second, I swear I could feel her fingers at my collar again. We hadn't spoken in weeks. Then one evening she was just outside, leaning against the bookstore window like she'd been there a while. She didn't wave. Just looked up when I stepped out after closing, her expression unreadable. The kind you can't fake because you're too tired to. "You walk home from here?" she asked. I nodded. "Mind if I come along?" We walked mostly in silence. Summer had started to fade, but the air still held some warmth. Her heels clicked unevenly on the sidewalk cracks. She was dressed simple. Black sweater, soft jeans. Like she wasn't trying to be seen tonight. I kept my hands in my pockets. She held her phone loosely in hers, unread texts lighting up the screen every few blocks. She didn't look. At the crosswalk, I asked quietly, "Are you seeing someone?" She didn't answer at first, just shifted her weight and looked straight ahead. "I've tried," she said. "Tried to date men my age. Tried to date men your age, too." I laughed. A dry sound I didn't mean to make. She glanced at me. "It never felt like this." "What is this?" I asked. She didn't reply, just kept walking. We sat at a bus stop bench after that, even though neither of us was taking the bus. My knee brushed hers once. I pulled it back. She stared down the road. "I think about you more than I should," she said. Her voice was flat, careful. I swallowed. The quiet between us was thick, like the air had rules now. "I don't know what you want," I said. Her head turned slightly. "That's not the question, Daniel." I looked at her then. Really looked. Lines under her eyes. The soft tired around her mouth. That same faint scar beneath her bottom lip. It looked more permanent tonight. "Then what is?" She took a breath like she might answer. Didn't. Her fingers played with the edge of her sleeve. My hands twitched once in my lap, then stilled. We sat like that for minutes, still too aware of everything not being said. "I get scared when I like something," I admitted, "because I never know how long I'm allowed to have it." She exhaled. Not a sigh, more like a release she hadn't meant to show. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. "You think this is easy for me?" "No." "Then why do you look at me like it is?" I looked away. The streetlight above us buzzed. A car passed, headlights slicing through the dark. We were so close. Close enough that I could smell the faint citrus in her hair. She turned her face toward mine, just slightly, and then stopped. Inches between us. Her breath caught. "Do you want me to stop coming?" she asked finally. But she didn't look at me when she said it. She stopped coming again. Not with warning this time. No note in a book. No message. Just gone. For 2 weeks, I kept folding a napkin in half at the back table, waiting. I told myself it didn't mean anything. People get busy. People move on. People change their minds. Still, I kept glancing at the door, like she might walk through it. Wind in her hair, eyes scanning for something only she understood. I finally texted her. "Are you okay?" It stayed on delivered. Never turned blue. I deleted it 3 hours later. On the third Thursday, her daughter came in. I didn't recognize her at first. Same eyes, different energy. Younger, of course. Confident in that loud, unaware way people are when they still think everything important is ahead of them. She ordered an iced coffee. Gave my name at the counter like she'd known it longer than she should have. "Mom talks about you sometimes," she said, looking at her phone. "Said you're the only one who gets her tea right." I froze mid-pour. "She's okay. She's just been laying low. Some stuff came up with her job." "She didn't tell you?" "A beat." "Oh, right." The girl, woman, really gave me a quick smile like she hadn't meant to say that out loud. She left a 5 in the tip jar and walked out without picking up her drink. I didn't chase her. That night, I walked past Janine's apartment. Not on purpose. Okay, maybe on purpose. The windows were dark, the front porch light still on. The lemon tree in the front yard looked like it needed watering. I thought about knocking. I thought about what I'd say if she opened the door. Or worse, if she didn't. So I stood there for a minute, just still. Long enough for someone walking their dog to glance at me, and long enough for me to feel stupid about being there. I turned around and walked home. Didn't sleep much. Kept writing and deleting the same message. I didn't mean to make things harder. "I miss Thursdays. You said not to waste my smile. You're the only one who sees it." None of it felt right. Or maybe it felt too right. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next day at work, I looked out the window around 4:30. just out of habit. Someone sat at the corner table. For half a second, my heart jumped. It wasn't her. Just a woman with the same kind of windbreaker, stirring her tea too fast. I turned back. It was a Tuesday when she came back. Not a Thursday. Not at 4 p.m. Just Tuesday. Early evening. I was mopping the cafe floor. She walked in like she didn't know whether she was allowed to. No windbreaker this time. Just her. In jeans and a gray sweater, hair pulled back loosely like she hadn't planned to be seen. She didn't order anything. Didn't sit. Just stood there near the pastry case, eyes scanning shelves like she was looking for something she'd lost. I leaned the mop against the counter. Neither of us moved for a few seconds. Then I said, "It's not Thursday." "I know," she said, voice low, not embarrassed, just uncertain. "I thought maybe you were gone." "I was." She looked at me then. "I had to be." I nodded, not asking why. Maybe that was the one thing I'd gotten right from the beginning. Never asking her for more than she offered. I gestured to the corner table. "Still yours." She sat, slower than usual, like the air was heavier now. I brought over 2 mugs. Chamomile for her. Black coffee for me. Same as always. She looked at the cup. Didn't pick it up. "I thought I could shut it down," she said finally. "You and I." Whatever this was, I told myself it was inappropriate, impractical, doomed. She laughed once, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I was doing okay," she went on. "And then you stopped texting. You never answered," I said quietly. She nodded. "I know. That didn't mean I didn't read them. Or want to." There was a pause. One of those big ones that hang in the middle of the table like a third person. "You were right," I said. "About what?" "That we don't have to name something for it to be true." She looked down at her hands, then turned them palm up on the table, like an offering. "I'm tired of pretending I don't care what happens here," she said. "Even if it's messy. Even if it's brief." I stared at her hands. My fingers twitched, but I didn't move. "Not yet." "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not of you. Just of how much space this takes up in me." She looked at me then. Really looked. Like I was a window she was finally willing to open. "I can't promise anything," she said. "I don't know how this ends. I only know I didn't feel like myself when you stopped showing up in my day." I reached out, finally, and rested my fingers on top of hers. Lightly. Nothing more. She didn't pull away. The cafe was closing. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. Someone outside was laughing too loudly, like they were from a different story entirely. We sat in the quiet for a long time. No one rushed the moment. Then she smiled, small, tired, real. "Okay," she said. Just that. But it was enough. Oh, the counter, and kept wiping it down, even though it was already clean. "She still comes on Thursdays. Not every week. Sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes not at all. But when she walks in, it's never with hesitation now. She just gives me that look. The one that says I'm here if you are." I still make her chamomile tea with half a lemon. Still pour myself black coffee. Sometimes she drinks it, sometimes she just wraps her hands around the mug like she needs the warmth more than the taste. She doesn't wear the windbreaker anymore. Says it makes her feel like someone she's done pretending to be. Now it's linen shirts, soft scarves. A quiet comfort in her own skin. I moved out of the bookstore cafe a few months ago. Picked up hours at the small print shop down the street. Janine says it suits me more. Less foam, more ink. She comes by after work sometimes. Brings dinner in brown paper bags and sits on the counter while I clean rollers and answer emails. We don't live together. Not yet. Maybe not ever. We're still finding our way in this quiet, uncharted thing. But I keep a toothbrush at her place now. She has my favorite cereal in the cupboard. Once, I asked her why she stayed that night at the cafe. Why she came back at all. She thought about it for a long time before answering. "Because I missed the version of myself I only saw when I was sitting across from you. And I got it. Completely. Some loves don't arrive with fanfare or fireworks. Some just settle in slowly, like light through a window you didn't realize was open. We still sit at the bus stop sometimes. The one we never use. We'll bring tea or coffee and just let the evening settle around us. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes not. The silence isn't heavy anymore. It just fits. The other day it rained while we sat there. A slow, warm kind of rain. Janine reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a napkin, folded in half like always, and handed it to me without a word. I unfolded it. Inside was a note. You still squint when you read. I laughed and tucked it into my jacket pocket. She reached over, adjusted my collar like she had months ago, her fingers lingering just a second longer this time. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. When I glanced at her, she was already looking at me. Not in the way people look when they're waiting for something, but the way people look when they've already arrived. I don't know what word we'd use for this. It's not quite love. Not quite yet. But it's ours. And at 8:47 a.m. the next morning, when she texts, "Tea, bench, after work," I just reply, "Okay. End of story." Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?